Good evening and welcome, commissioners, participants, and interested parties to the September 7th, 2023 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. I'm Tom Bell, Chair of the Cohasset Conservation Commission, and we'll be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts and Cohasset Wetlands Protection Act and the Cohasset Stormwater Management Regulations. The Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and is being held on a Zoom platform. If you have any questions for the Commission, put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the page. And when called, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. You must include your name and address to be recognized. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission are our Conservation Commission Administrator, Angela Giso, and Town Conservation Agent, Charlotte Pechtel. I'll now take a roll call vote of the Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, present.
Kathy Berrigan, present. I'm sorry.
Okay. Chris McFarland?
Chris McFarland, present.
Tom Bell, present. And we are also joined by Associate Commissioner Valerio Romano.
Valerio Romano, present.
Thank you. A reminder again, or information for the public, Associate Commissioners are full participants in the hearing, though they do not have a vote. Tonight, we have a quorum of 4 commissioners. We'll be taking all votes via roll call, with each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Our first order of business tonight is approval of minutes for our August 3rd meeting. You only vote if you've attended the meeting or have watched the video. I'm not sure is this correct? If you've watched the video of the meeting, could they still?
We watched the full video, yeah, but all of you guys were present on August 3rd.
Okay. I move that we accept the August 3rd meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
With that, we'll have a roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland?
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That motion passes 4-0-0. Okay, so next. So we're going to start the meeting with a notice of public hearing for RDA 2314 at 270 North Main Street, Cohasset, in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on Zoom platform for RDA 2314 for a septic upgrade by applicant David Walsh. Charlotte, can you introduce our applicant?
We also have Sanji Fernando joining us. Sanji, can you just confirm present?
Yes, present.
Okay, yeah, he's our second associate commissioner. And then we have James Garfield from Morse Engineering. And James, we do have David in the audience. I don't know if he wants to be promoted, but
okay. Yeah, I mean, if he's got his hand raised, sure.
No hand raised yet, but
okay. Well, David, if you're out there, raise your hand if you want to join in. So yeah, again, everyone, for the record, James Garfield with Morse Engineering, here representing David Walsh for the RDA associated with this septic system upgrade. Let's see here. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so to familiarize yourself with this plan, we've got our property lines shown here in bold, North Main Street shown down at the bottom of the page. This is an existing 5-bedroom single-family dwelling with a failing Title V septic system. The existing septic system partially resides within the 50-foot buffer to a bordering vegetated wetland. And what we're proposing is to upgrade the septic system with a new 1,500-gallon septic tank, 1,500-gallon pump chamber, which will then pump the effluent up to a Presby EnviroSeptic leaching field. Just given the, I guess, dimensional constraints at this site, it's impossible to keep the septic system outside of the 100-foot BVW setback. So we are keeping all septic components outside of the 50-foot setback. We are proposing a mulch sock down gradient of the proposed work. And we also, per Charlotte's request, are proposing a mulch sock with a silt fence along the existing driveway, which directly abuts the bordering vegetated wetland shown in blue. It should be noted that Board of Health has approved this plan, and we believe this is a great improvement from what currently exists at this site. So with that, I'll pass it back to the commission for any questions.
Commissioners, do you have anything to add to this? Questions?
Is there any vegetation being removed for this system?
I'm sorry, come again with that?
Is there any vegetation or any trees being removed for this system?
Yes, so one 4-inch caliper tree is being proposed to be removed, and then some brush, some underbrush as well.
Mr. Garfield, can you use your pointer to show the tree that's being removed?
Certainly. So it's shown here in red right there.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Where was the previous drain field or septic?
So the existing septic system is shown here. Here's the existing septic tank, which then flows into this rectangular leaching field. So considerably smaller in size, and lower into the groundwater table as well.
Can you show us the soil test? It looks like you've done 2 soil tests there.
Yep.
Can you show us the details of that, please?
Yep, so right here, we've got groundwater down 20 inches in test pit 1 and 22 inches in test pit 2. So we're bringing the system up.
How are you gonna access the site?
So the site's going to be accessed through the existing paved driveway, which is why we've added this erosion control barrier along it. There's really not enough width to get through machines through the left side of the house here, just given the I mean, it's possible, but we'd have to take even more brush out and landscaping out than we are currently proposing. Traffic's already going through this existing paved driveway, and it's maintained lawn to the left of that. So, we're gonna be working on the upland side, obviously, of that driveway to access that leaching field.
So you go up the driveway until you have to cross over to access so there'll be presumably there'll be some disturbance off the driveway in the 50-foot buffer zone.
We are proposing no soil stockpiling or staging of equipment within the 50-foot buffer, and we have a note to that effect right here. But they will have to cross the lawn to get over to the construction area.
Mhm.
Were you required to do a percolation test on this drain field or at that site?
Yes, so we did a perk test as part of this filing with the Board of Health. So we did a perk test sieve analysis in lieu of a perk test within test pit 2.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
No.
Questions or concerns, comments? Okay, with that, I would invite anybody who would like to make a motion to approve this. Actually, this is an RDA. So
It would be a motion for either a -2 or -3 if we have it, -3 if we have any conditions.
Yeah, I have one other question. This is there a stream here? In this an intermittent stream here? Is this the one with the stream, Charlotte, or the intermittent stream potentially, or?
Oh, sorry, Chris, was that to me or to
Yeah,
James?
I don't know. Is there just a question. Is there an intermittent stream on this?
Yes, there is one within the BVW system. It's not surveyed on the plan, but you can see the invert, underneath that goes under Dolan Lane. But yeah, right, on the site plan, just the limit of the BVW is shown.
I can't say to that effect. I mean, even if there is an intermittent stream there, the buffer zone does come off of the BVW that's associated with. And even if it was a perennial stream, septic systems, septic upgrades are exempt from riverfront area requirements.
Yeah, I'll just note that, although it's intermittent, at least for RDAs, for site plans under section 4, we say that resource areas and buffer zones should be shown. So it doesn't say shall, but, you know, since it's an RDA, that's why it might have been more recommended. But for NOIs, obviously, it would be required to show all resource areas and buffer zones, but for an RDA, we just say should.
So the flow is from Plan North to Plan South in that wetland, is that correct?
Sorry, Tom, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the direction of flow, surface water flow, is from Plan North to Plan South, is that correct?
Well, on the lot, it varies, I guess. Like on this plan,
The wetland is, oh yeah, the wetland is on the lot, yeah.
correct. On
I'm
the
just-
lot, the house is the high point as shown by our topography. So
Right.
it slopes in every direction away from the house.
Oh, okay, that's not quite what I was trying to get at. What I was asking was, if we were to infer where the location of that intermittent stream was, I think my recollection of the topography here is that it would flow from Plan North to Plan South in that wetland, within the boundary of the wetland. Is that accurate?
That looks correct, yes.
So, and it looks like that next down to a pretty narrow wetland there, and then crosses the right of way or goes under it. Is that right? Is there a
We have shots there. I'm guessing it's a culvert
yeah.
underneath Dolan Lane there. But yes, the invert elevations show that it's going from north to south.
Okay. What condition is that culvert in? Do you have any idea?
That I can't say. I'm sorry.
So commissioners, would you like to add any conditions other than those in our so-called boilerplate conditions here? You see any issues that need to be addressed as conditions?
We don't have our boilerplate for the RDAs.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry, it's just for we just have that boilerplate for orders of condition. But, you know, again, if you wanted to issue a -3 determination, you can add conditions.
Would your client be willing to replace the tree that they're removing?
Yes, if that's a condition of approval, we can certainly make that happen.
The one condition I would recommend for this is that I assume this work's going to take place fairly soon. So okay, I think there'd be a condition that this fall, assuming that this work is going to take place soon, this fall, the lawn should be completely reseeded, and then again if necessary in the spring, so that we don't get a lot of residual erosion over time through the 50-foot buffer.
not only that, but the gradient on the wetland side, the east side of the mound is pretty steep. So that obviously needs to be stabilized as well. So Chris, so it sounds like you do have some conditions here, both Chris's.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
Let's tally up our conditions first.
Oh, okay.
And then proceed to a motion.
Okay.
So why don't you go first, Chris McFarland?
So my condition would be that as soon as work on the septic system is complete, that the area between the septic system and the wetland needs to be regraded and seeded within 30 days. And then reevaluated in the spring and reseeded again if necessary.
And any additional conditions you'd like?
No.
Chris McIntyre, it sounds like one of your conditions at least is to have replicate that tree that's going to be removed. Where would you like to see that?
Yeah, I think replacement of the tree from species from our native tree list, in the 100-foot buffer, and then just the condition that one of the standard conditions, or I guess it's not a standard condition, it's just in our regs, is just to go along with the 50, buffer. Just a reminder not to use fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides.
Right. I would add that we don't want to see a tree replaced in proximity to that drain field, because of course that tree is going to find that drain field and run roots all the way through it, depending on the species of tree. So it should be somewhat removed from the drain field.
I had a quick question, like, just going back to the gradient thing, is that a 3-foot differential around the field? Like, is that typical? Because that does seem pretty steep. Like, just, comes in, like, I wonder if that should be graded more evenly.
Yeah, so
If it's going to survive the years.
that's a 3-to-1 grading around the septic there, which is very typical for a septic system. It will be loamed and seeded, stabilized post-construction. And this is purely as an effort, I guess, in regards to the Board of Health side of this, to pull that septic system higher out of the ground, to provide adequate groundwater separation so that we can treat the effluent prior to it getting into the groundwater and then eventually the wetlands. So we're trying to minimize the impact essentially.
Got it. I was just curious, like, if that, I guess 3-to-1 is a good ratio. Like, it just seems pretty steep for long-term erosion.
Yeah, it should be plenty. We do septic systems with 3-to-1 grading all the time, so it's very typical.
So I would add just one more condition, and that's that the erosion controls remain in place for well past germination. We've seen a number of issues where hydroseeding has been done here and the silt socks have been removed, and then we get a downpour and that hydroseeding doesn't hold anything in place. And even once you've had germination, you don't have any sort of root mass yet. So I'd like to see those erosion controls stay in place until that turf is established. So that might be clear until next spring. Chris McFarland, does that sound reasonable?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Any further conditions, commissioners?
No, but I just have one question, please.
Sure.
About the loam that you're going to put there, am I correct in understanding that it's only going to cover about 18 square feet, which is the top part of the septic system, and only about 6 inches of loam on top of that? That's the only fill that you're bringing in on the existing lawn?
So yeah, we're bringing in, I believe it's I want to say bare minimum, I believe it's 6 inches of cover. Yeah, you're correct. 6 inches of cover being loam and seed on top of the septic system. We're raising the entire field. So, the entire square footage of that area we are filling up. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that's the only fill that's
Correct, just for the
Okay.
septic system. Yep, just to bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
So from the minutes, can we construct the conditions that we're proposing? Charlotte?
So do you want me to summarize and then?
Well,
Someone
I
makes them.
guess what I'm asking is, can, when we make the motion, do we need to recite all of these, or can we just reference the minutes?
I would, just for clarity, just say, make a motion to close the public hearing and issue a -3 determinations with the following conditions, and then you can just list them. Not sure if everyone wrote them down, but I can say it again before you make the motion. I know it's repetitive, but it's just for the clean, for the minutes.
Sure. So would you recite them, please?
Yeah, so one of the conditions would be to replace the tree being removed and replace it with a native tree from our approved planting lists and to not place it in proximity of the septic system. 2, that the lawn should be completely reseeded immediately following the completion of the septic work and within 30 days of completion, and shall be reseeded as necessary in the spring and reevaluated. And then the 3rd condition being our standard regulations on no fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides to be used in the 100-foot buffer or resource areas. And then 4th, the condition of the erosion control barriers shall remain in place past germination until the lawn is fully established with no exposed soils. Sorry.
So I would assume that we can add our standard conditions when we issue a variance for temporary work in the 50.
You
Are we
can say what you can specify for the variance request. Yeah, like what you want, the variance to be composed of.
Okay, so we're ready to go with your motion, Chris.
Make a motion to close the public hearing and issue a -3 determination with the conditions that no herbicides, pesticides, something else, fertilizers, nitrogen fertilizer used within the area between the work and the wetland would be regraded and replanted within 30 days of completion of the job and reseeded in the spring. That a replacement tree of 2.5-inch caliper be planted away from the construction of the new septic system, but within the 100-foot buffer, and that tree shall be picked from the list of acceptable plants, and that the silt stock will remain intact until the new lawn is established.
Excellent. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
With a second, we'll go to a roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, Chris McFarland,
You drop this.
Chris, you're up to vote. He's coming and going. In that we have Charlotte, in that we have a quorum, if I vote, it's still good, right? Or should we wait for Chris to?
Oh, you mean like a majority?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Tom Bell, aye. So that vote passes unless, Chris, you looks like you're back with us.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yay is my vote.
Okay. So this motion passes 4-0-0.
And then,
And so the next step is to issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer. With our normal conditions for that, right, Charlotte? No mechanized. So
sorry, do you want to make a motion to issue a variance?
yeah, I'll make the motion to issue a variance for work within the 50. It looks, there's enough earth moving here to be done so that it would be pretty rough going to do it with shovels and wheelbarrows. So I think that it's what we can say is that we would set a condition that the excavation equipment be of minimal size. And by that, I mean, perhaps one of these excavators that you ride behind instead of a full-size backhoe or something like that. Mr. Garfield, is that possible?
Yes, I'd say that's an acceptable condition.
Okay. So we will make an exception to our usual rule about working in the 50 with mechanized equipment and allow for so are you gonna scoot back and forth with your machine to move loam presumably from a stockpile on the driveway to the side, or would I suppose at least a small truck might reduce the overall traffic if you could dump up there. Is that right?
Just looking at the amount of fill we have to bring in. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a considerable amount. So if you require a smaller vehicle to bring the soil to the site, that's what you're getting at?
Well, yeah. So let me ask you this question: if we're trying to minimize the impact on the 50, would it be make less of an impact to be able to back a small truck up there to dump your loam, and then grade it with a small tractor of some sort, or it sort of seems to me if you had to go back and forth with that tractor carrying it scoop by scoop, it's going to do a heck of a lot more damage than 1 or 2 truckloads up there. Is that?
Yeah, I'd say you're probably correct in that. I would think it would make more sense to bring a larger truck, dump, however many, 2-3 loads, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Outside of the 50-foot buffer, and then you're not having as much traffic back and forth over that lawn area.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we would relax our conditions of no mechanized work in the 50 here, you got to do this as a septic system. Not like there's a lot of discretion here. So I'm looking for the least impact we can expect. And I think that a truck and a small tractor would be probably the way to go here.
Val, did you have a question?
Well, and it may go without saying, but any mechanized equipment that goes across the 50, let's make sure it's well-maintained equipment and isn't leaking oil, and et cetera. I think that would probably be, let's just make sure that that's happening as opposed to just anything off the street.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so since you are moving a lot of dirt, seems to me that as you leave that driveway, if that truck has a lot of mud stuck to its tires, it's going to make a mess out there on North Main Street. So I think that we would require that an additional condition that all equipment before it leaves the site, even if it's going back to get another load, that any mud be washed off the tires before he gets out onto North Main.
Okay.
And that should also be, wherever you're doing that, there should be erosion control to prevent that from ending up in the wetland.
Yeah, so we have the erosion controls basically down the entire limit of the driveway. We also have, forgot to mention, a silt sack proposed in the catch basin out by the street.
Great. Okay. So with those conditions, I would move that we issue a variance for work within the 50-foot
second,
buffer. Roll call vote, Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 4-0-0. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Okay, where are we? Yeah, the next is a notice of public hearing for RDA 2315, 12 Elm Street, Cohasset. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for RDA 2315 for seawall maintenance by the applicant CHI Elm Street. Is that Elm Street Realty Trust? Is that the full name?
It's CHI Elm Street Realty, right, Ted?
Yeah, it's CHI Elm Street Realty LLC.
Okay. Let the record reflect that. Charlotte, will you introduce our?
Yes, we have Ted Lubitz from CHI Elm Street Realty LLC and John McGoldrick. I'm sorry, John, I'm forgetting the name of your firm.
He's with us as well.
Okay.
Same
thank
one.
you. All right,
Yeah.
yep. And Ted, I can pull up my screen if you guys would like to explain your submission. Give me
Yeah, that
one-
would be great. So for the record, Ted Lubitz, CHI Elm Street Realty LLC. Sorry, I'm not on video. I'm actually similar to Chris. I'm in a car, but mine is full of kids. So if there's a lot of background noise, I apologize. And John can step in and handle whatever you guys need. But we're here tonight for an RDA for a portion of a seawall on 124 Elm Street. This is actually just sort of, I would say, routine maintenance using the same means and methods for the other seawalls throughout Cohasset Harbor. We'd actually be working with the exact same contractor that the town has been working with for the seawall repairs. That's Shopcrete. Mike White would be doing this work as well. And so, again, looking for the exact same conditions and the same process that the town has already approved and has been working with for the other seawalls throughout town. And this is for the northern portion of the seawall. Again, the southern portion is revetment, which are the large sort of granite blocks. We're not looking to do anything to that. The portion is the dry set area that Charlotte just had pulled up on the screen.
Charlotte, would you go back to the pictures that you were just showing?
Yeah, and Ted, if I may, the site plan that was submitted with the RDA is oops, sorry, I don't know why I'm trying to zoom out here. It was a markup of the previous RDA plans that were submitted from the town. It was RDA 2108, I believe. And so those 10 locations were from the previously approved town project. And then the spot 11 that Ted and John had labeled on the plan is this area that you see here that they're proposing to repair.
Yeah, and we did that to show the proximity to the other work
Right.
that's been approved. And so, Mr. Chair, it's the portion just to like essentially where the long weeds start at the middle of the screen, extending down to where the white truck is.
Mr. Lubitz, you're not an engineer, is that right?
I am not, no.
I've always been curious about these. I know the town's put a lot of them in, put a lot of shotcrete in here. It's my understanding that these dry walls allowed passage of seawater with the tide as it went in and out. And so they naturally drain. And
I have the same concern. Actually, my property that I live on has a dry set seawall. And I've had the same thoughts that you have as the town was doing this. And I did consult with a structural engineer. And I also have talked to Mike Whitehead, again, the owner of Extreme Shotcrete. And what they do is they actually put in the drainage tubes so water can come and go.
So
And
it
this
has
is
has weep holes essentially.
exactly, it's got weep holes, and that's the same process that we did actually when we repaired or replaced the pier at the salt house. One of the issues that I've been told about with the dry set is actually things leach through it over time, so you end up losing a lot of backfill. But with the weep holes, that it's a lot more controlled, and so that actually allows it to drain and get the water out behind it in a controlled way.
Great. So I mean, if it were fully sealed at low tide, you'd have hydrostatic pressure on the landward side of your wall, and you could end up with bulges like we saw over by the salt house. And I'm not saying that those were caused by freshwater hydrostatic pressure, but you know, if you seal this thing completely at low tide, I mean, these walls aren't really designed to hold the water back.
No, they're not, and that actually is one of the theories of why the salt house failed, is because the prior owners had sent masons down there to just essentially put in mortar in between the joints, which is a death sentence for a dry set wall unless you do have the weep holes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, commissioners, do you have any comments or questions?
I have one comment. In the previous work with this town, we said that plywood would be placed below the wall to catch any batter. This was done for most of the wall, but there were a couple times where it wasn't. This has a much larger beach area at low tide, so you know, perhaps big tarps versus plywood might be better. But in any case, I just want to reinforce that was a condition, and that it should be adhered to strictly during the shotcrete process, just to catch any rebound.
That's a great idea, and we're totally fine with that.
Further questions, comments?
I might have missed it, but like, is the height changing at all? Are you going to go higher?
Nothing is changing with the actual wall. Again, this is maintenance only.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just curious, is that what you want? Like, it seems like at very high tides, at least along the street there, I can't remember if it's Atlantic or Elm at that point, but like, it seems like tides always can come over beyond those walls. Is that what
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We don't have any breaches on our site, any of the property or our seawalls. That is at the low point, and there's actually a drainage tube there, a storm drain that water ebbs and flows out of, and then it breaches over the street side on Margin Street. But it does not breach over this seawall. This street wall historically has plenty of clearance, actually, as does our other one as you extend south down the site.
Got it.
So we're not looking to it, and it actually meets the finished grade, where there ultimately be a boardwalk right next to this as part of the redevelopment, and it meets that finished grade, and it was all designed to be matched up like that.
You want to back this picture up again to not there, to the other end. Charlotte, are you the one that's controlling this? Where's Ted?
Yep, sorry.
I'm interested in this crack we see in the very left-hand side here. It looks like after your pour, this wall is moved a little bit, more than a little bit. Yeah,
so these are separate pours, actually. If you look at, there are two series of seawalls, and that's where this is the beginning of the revetment. And then actually, sorry, this is the end of the revetment, the beginning of the dry set area. So that's a cap, like a poured concrete cap that was placed on that. So you can see the seal, see how it transitions from essentially Jersey barriers into a poured cap.
I see. So that's going to get filled with shotcrete as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That one section, just the joint.
Yeah. Okay.
And then just a quick question, whether it's tarp or plywood that you put down at low tide, I guess that will just come in and out every 6 hours for the hour that you have before the water comes in? Is that sort of the way that they do it?
Yes, they do. And Mike believes he can do this in one low tide. I'm hoping he can. If not, it would take two. But he intends to do this in one sitting. But we'll see if that's possible. But everything would be removed as the tide comes in, and then put back down at the next low tide if it is 2 days.
And then I noticed from the application that you're also going to have to like score or chink across the wall to make it so that the shotcrete will stick. Is that right?
The scoring is for that purpose, but the chink is just any small chink stones that have fallen out over time will just be put back in.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions or comments?
I'll just note too that the town RDA had a few conditions. I don't have a scan of it right now, but I'm looking at the minutes. We had at least 7 days notice with specific timing of project and tides will be given to the agent prior to the start of works, basically like a 7-day pre-construction notice. And then the commission had asked for a pre-inspection between the town of Cohasset and the agent to discuss the exact location of shotcrete usage. So if you wanted to suggest those as similar conditions. I believe also in their application, Ted, you had provided kind of like a work schedule too. So I can pull that up. So you could do either or, it's up to you guys, but just wanted to note that. I believe you had it in your narrative.
Yeah, and we're happy with whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Yeah, so this is what you were suggesting. Yep, at least 7 days notice, pre-inspection. Oh, thank you. You're using the same stuff. And then application process must be approved. I had looked at that process before the town work started, but I'm happy to do it again. So basically, this is kind of their methodology that they're proposing. So it's similar, in fact, pretty much exactly the same to the town RDA that we approved 2 years ago.
So we'd be talking about a -3 determination. Is that correct, Charlotte?
Yes, if you want it with conditions.
The only condition I recall was made by Chris McFarland that there be tarps or plywood placed on the beach during shotcrete operations and picked up before the tide comes in. Yep. Were there any other conditions?
Well, Tom, these were the conditions from the town project.
Right.
So as long as these carry through, then that would be the only conditions.
Okay. Do we know whether there were any other conditions that we issued? I don't recall the hearing for the in enough detail for the other side of the harbor. Whether there were any other conditions that we should also include in this one.
This was another one of the conditions that the application process involving materials being sprayed or removed had to be approved by me beforehand. So that was actually one of the first things I did when I started. But this was another condition. So these were the three in addition to what Chris just said.
Okay, so let's include those three in our -3 determination.
Mm-hmm. And then they've also suggested these as part of their methodology as well.
The applicant suggested these?
Yeah, this is in the RDA narrative.
Okay. So let's incorporate those into our conditions then.
Yeah, you could make a statement about just the all steps as narrated in the RDA shall be followed, and then in addition to Chris's suggested condition about the tarps and plywood being in place.
Okay. Is anybody ready to make a motion here to that effect? If not,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, to issue a -3 determination with the added condition that all the the conditions being what were in place for the town, plus the idea of using a bigger tarp in lieu of plywood to catch the rebound coming off the shotcrete.
Okay, so maybe more concise would be to use tarps that sufficiently cover the intertidal zone at low tide to prevent spillover from or splatter from shotcrete.
Sounds good.
Okay, do we have a second for this motion?
Berrigan, second.
With that, we'll go to a roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That motion passes 4-0-0.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And also, I know Mr. McFarland came down to the site, but all of you are welcome if you ever want to come see what we're up to. But the project should be finishing up this spring, so we have a lot to be excited about next summer. We'll all be open.
Good. Thank you.
Just quickly, Tom, we need to just quickly do a variance for work within the
Oh, yeah.
buffer zone.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to issue a variance for work within the buffer. Actually, within the resource area.
Yes, right. And it's within the resource area, it probably within at least a few inches of the buffer, wouldn't you think, Chris? So should we include that?
I don't know if it matters at that point.
Probably not. Probably not. I'll second that.
Okay, take a roll call.
Yeah, roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That variance passes 4-0-0. The motion passes 4-0-0.
Thank you again. Have a good
You're welcome.
night.
Good night.
Okay, so our next notice of public hearing for RDA 2316 for 236 Jerusalem Road, Cohasset, in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for RDA 2316 for construction of a fence by the applicant Friends of Holly Hill Farm. Charlotte, will you introduce the applicant?
So actually with this one, we had a technicality where unfortunately the public newspaper notice was not sufficiently paid and posted within the required time frame. It was just mostly miscommunication error, but once I notified the applicants of that issue, they did immediately address it. It's just we're unfortunately outside the time frame. So I suggested a continuance, and they agreed to a continuance to September 21st, just so we can have that administrative completion for, proper public notice. But they did notify butters in time. It just, the newspaper wasn't posted.
So do we have to propose a motion to do that, or do we?
No, we can just continue it. Yep, so we open the hearing and we'll just continue it to September 21st.
Okay. Nothing more to do there. Nothing more to see. Good. Okay, next notice of public hearing for NOI 2325 80 Nichols Road, Cohasset, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for NOI 2325 for construction of an addition by the applicants Peter and Danielle Schreier. Charlotte, will you introduce the participant?
Yes, so we have Peter Schreier, the applicant, and Danielle. Yep, thank you, Peter and Danielle. And then we have Carmen Hudson from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors representing the applicant, as well as Adam Brodsky from DTM Law.
Thank you, Charlotte. Chairman Bell, this is Adam Brodsky. May I proceed, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you know, my name is Adam Brodsky. I'm a local environmental and land use attorney, and I represent Peter and Danielle Schreier. And with us this evening is Carmen Hudson, our professional engineer from Merrill. The Conservation Commission has seen this project before. The Schreiers filed an RDA because this is fundamentally a buffer zone project, and the commission issued a positive determination of applicability, which required the filing of the notice of intent. Since you're generally familiar with the purpose of this project, which is to really facilitate the Schreiers to age in place and accommodate their aging parents, I'm just going to provide a summary of the wetland issues and then turn it over to Carmen for details. You're familiar with the lot. It's approximately 36,000 square feet, and it's improved with an existing single-family dwelling. There is a coastal bank on the project site.
Excuse me, can we put up a map or plan while you're describing this, please?
Thank you. I don't know whether Carmen wants to share screen and provide it. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Adam, but Charlotte, John Teriaki is also here with us. He's the architect for the project. If you could possibly promote him as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Adam, please continue.
Oh, no, and thank you. I'm going to rely upon Carmen to go into more detail. I simply wanted to outline the relevant resource areas. And so as I was mentioning, there's coastal bank on the project site, which is comprised of exposed ledge and does not contribute sediment to a coastal beach. And as such, the relevant performance standard is to ensure that the project will have no adverse impact on the stability of the coastal bank, which is important for storm damage protection and flood control. As Carmen will explain in more detail, the project is located within a buffer zone to the coastal bank, and none of the activities we are proposing are going to do anything to impair the stability of that bank. The project site also contains floodplain with portions located within the FEMA AE zone elevation 10, but no work is being proposed within the floodplain, which, as you know, is regulated as land subject to coastal storm flowage. And there is an off-site salt marsh, but again, all of the work is going to be proposed or is being proposed within the buffer zone to that salt marsh. The closest point of any proposed work will be, I believe, the stairs from the proposed deck to the top of coastal bank, which is approximately 68 feet away. The other elements are further back from the relevant wetland resource areas. The work involves construction of two small additions, and again, only portions of which encroach within the 100-foot buffer zone. Those additions will be constructed on foundation walls with a footing. And as Carmen will explain in more detail, if ledge is encountered, those footings will be pinned to the ledge. There's no basement being proposed. These will only have crawl spaces. And the Schreiers are also proposing a deck on sonotubes with gravel beneath. The deck will be constructed with your required plank spacing so that water will pass through the deck and infiltrate. The total additional impervious, it will be approximately 494 square feet and does not trigger the requirement for a stormwater permit. And as Carmen will explain in more detail, stormwater will be managed with gutters and downspouts from the structure, with downspouts daylighting over areas of the lawn where they presently daylight, and the downspouts associated with the deck will go under the deck with water infiltrating in the crushed stone. So there's no change to the existing stormwater patterns. The rear of the property is turf, lawn, and ledge. And again, there's, as Carmen will explain more detail, there's no chance of any discharge of stormwater into Little Harbor. As it happens, the Schreiers do not fertilize their turf lawn because they have small dogs, and they will continue to not use fertilizers in their rear yard. The Schreiers have reviewed the project with all of their neighbors, and no one has objected. The planning board conducted a large farm review last evening and approved with no conditions. With that, Carmen is going to describe the erosion controls and the means and methods to protect a 20-foot DBA tree to the right of the existing house. And I just want you to know that the Schreiers are committed to preserving the tree, and they've already alerted their potential builders to their concern about preserving that tree. And just in summary, the project is designed to ensure that there'll be no adverse impact to any of the wetland resource areas. And again, all of the work is located outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, which is regulated more stringently by your local bylaw. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carmen, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Adam. I don't really think I have that much more detail other than mentioning the silt sock. So here in red, we have the silt sock that is going to be installed during construction downstream of the proposed work. This also is showing some silt sock on the other side, just to keep any kind of siltation actually from going into close to the home, and the material and stockpiling area is going to be over here towards the front of the property. So you did a tremendous job, Adam, going through all of the resource areas. I don't think I have anything to add. So if anybody has any questions.
Commissioners?
I'll just note too, Carmen and Adam, thank you for that amazing summary. That one of the commissioners' comments last time for the RDA review was to install some necessary protection for the tree that's closest to the easterly addition in the rear. So they have added a note that, I'm sorry, I can't read it, but it does say tree protection barrier to be installed around 20-foot caliper tree.
Yeah, we were thinking about a construction fence around it.
Further comments or questions? So with that, does anyone care to offer a motion to approve this notice of intent? I'll do it. I move that we approve the NOI 2325 with our standard conditions, and the condition that a tree protection barrier protect this, what's the caliper of this tree? 20 inches, a 20-inch caliper tree just east of the addition of the deck. I don't believe there were any other conditions. Is that correct? Okay.
Make a second.
Second, okay. I'm going to go to a roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This motion passes 4-0-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, so
They heard it once. She was right, even though it was a pain in the ass.
She just popped me again.
Yeah, because it would have been a bunch.
Let's mute them real quick.
don't want to have those open mics, do we?
Yep, no, we want to mute that. Okay, next hearing.
Good, yeah. So next up is notice of public hearing for NOI 2324 and stormwater permit 2317 at 15 Windy Hill Road, Cohasset. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on Zoom platform for NOI 2324 and stormwater permit 2317 for construction of an addition and upgrades by applicants Andrew and Catherine Knowlton. Charlotte, would you introduce our applicants?
Yes, so we have Andrew and Catherine Knowlton, applicants and property owners. We have Brendan Sullivan and Brendan. Caroline Reese is also in the audience, but I think you're going to take the lead on this one. So we have Brendan Sullivan from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors, and Caroline Reese as well for backup questions as well. And then I don't see Brad Holmes, Brendan. I'm not sure if he's done with his other meeting, but is there anyone else who might be in the audience?
No, I think that should do it.
Okay, awesome. Oh, sorry, Don. I'll promote you later. All right. Awesome. Brendan, would you like to share your screen and get us started, or?
Sure, yep. So as Charlotte said, for the record, Brendan Sullivan from Merrill Associates, here with the owners and applicants, Andrew and Catherine Knowlton. The existing site is a existing single-family home on 15 Windy Hill Road, on the, let's say, the east side of Windy Hill. There are BVW and a riverfront that is located off-site at 618 Jerusalem Road, this is the driveway here for 618. The house is further back to the south. Jerusalem Road is up to the north. We did permitting back on this site because since the resource areas are off-site, we're not allowed to flag them on private property. So we took those existing resource areas from our filing that was done in, I believe it was 2011 and 2012, which was a BVW and a riverfront. The river being Rattlesnake Brook, which is a fairly narrow brook in this area. So I didn't think those resource areas are going to change all that much, if any. So like I said, single family home served by a backyard lawn area, driveway, paved driveway in the front. What we're proposing is in addition to the existing dwelling, basically taking the garage off on the side and adding to the rear and the side of the garage as well. The existing driveway will be removed. We have a driveway proposed for a side entrance garage down this lower level down here. The dwelling is served by sewer. There was an old septic system that was constructed back in the early to mid 90s. And we did a test pit over that system. And the system is in good condition. It's a stone and chamber system, similar to the infiltration systems we use. When I did dig it up, I didn't find any. There wasn't any black matter. I didn't see any biomatter or anything. Everything seemed to be working properly, although it hasn't been used in a number of years since they tied into sewer. So we're going to use that system as the infiltration for a portion of the proposed roof to mitigate the stormwater. So with that being said, we are so the impervious overall impervious is increasing in the site by about 1,500 square feet within the 200-foot riverfront. Sorry, so we do have the 50-foot buffer just off site. A little bit comes onto the site. We have the 100-foot inner riparian down here. This is the 100-foot buffer to the BVW associated with Rattlesnake Brook, and then this purple line out here is the 200-foot outer riparian or riverfront. So you can see most of the lot is within the 200-foot riverfront. The entire lot has been degraded and established as existing development. So we are with the 1,100 square feet of new impervious proposed within the riverfront. We're proposing 2,200, just over 2,200 square feet of mitigation plantings around the rear and the sides of the property to mitigate the new impervious that was being proposed within the riverfront area. We have a stone trench picking up the additional pavement is being proposed on the side entrance that is being collected and treated and sent to the infiltration system, as well as a small portion of the house, just this area shaded over here, about 440 square feet of roof area will be going to the infiltration system. I think that's really about it. I'll take any questions, or if Andrew or Catherine, I missed anything, you're welcome to join in.
No, the only thing I'd hit on is just, I know Brad had done an analysis and kind of, we did have a proposed planting plan. I know additional trees and plants in that area, just if there are any questions around what we were planning to do.
Commissioners, questions or comments?
Is there a floodplain here?
No.
Not on the property.
Not on the property, no. That may be associated with Rattlesnake Brook, but like I said, that's off-site. It might just run up the side of the adjacent property.
Yeah. Do you know what the elevation of Rattlesnake Run is in this area? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is how high above the Rattlesnake Run all these structures are.
I don't have that information.
I don't see any contours down there, so.
Yeah, there's I mean so there is a wall, so associated with this property next door, there was a tennis court, and that's what this fenced in, retaining walls part of the structure is here. That was an old tennis court. So that is raised, so that backyard is about elevation 19. Back here is elevation 16, so it does drop off here a little bit. So it's at least 3 feet higher than, the bottom of the wall, let's say. And I think it goes at least another 4 or 5 feet over to Rattlesnake Run.
Yeah.
And that's not tidal at all. That's just a freshwater river. It's very narrow. It's in some places it's only about 2 or 3 feet wide.
So, Mr. Sullivan, you think that the drain field is capable of handling all of the runoff from these?
Yeah, like I said,
two sources.
We dug it up. The stone was fairly clean. The sand was clean. Like I said, there was no biomat that I found. And even during the 100-year event, so the system itself is the chamber is about 15 inches high. That's what we modeled. The 100-year storm event only fills those chambers halfway. So I feel confident that it's more than adequate. I mean, they'll have to, when we dug the test pit, we crushed a couple of the chambers on top, so they'll have to be replaced. But I think there shouldn't be an issue with using the system.
So it's been, I think 21 years since Windy Hill was sewered, and I guess there would be a natural concern that there would be some still some organic matter in that drain field that has been relatively immobile and now could potentially be mobilized again. I suppose this is something that Department of Health would be focused on. Can you comment about that? I mean, you did say that when you did do your test pit, did it pass all the way through? First of all, did it pass all the way through the drain fields, or just tap the top of it?
It went all the way through. I could probably.
Have any pictures of that by any chance?
I did. What did I do with them? I don't see them. Let me see if I can pull those up. I did have those.
Well, it's adequate. If you didn't see any, I mean, we're going to take your word for it that essentially that all of that organic matter has degraded and it's no longer poses an issue. I guess, yeah. So I don't have any concerns about this.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it too. So if they were sewered in the early 2000s, and the system was installed in 92, 93, the system wasn't even 10 years old before they abandoned it. So with the size of the system, it was sized for a 4-bedroom. It's a decent size. Where we dug, the biomat might have not even reached where we dug because the material was less than 2-minute material down below there, believe it or not. and they did find standing water down deep. I didn't find any evidence of groundwater table, so I feel confident that it should work.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I guess I have one question. Where will all the staging occur?
So we have a staging area beside the house, almost like beside where the existing garage will be taken down. Staging area here, and probably where the existing driveway is going to go as well. We'll we have a silt sock that will delineate the limit of work in the rear yard. So we'll try and we'll keep our staging outside of that. We'll obviously need some room to get back here for lumber and building materials around the rear yard. But for the most part, we'll be outside of the 100-foot buffer anyway, for the most part.
Okay, great.
Obviously, other than the mitigation plantings, but.
Where will your, in the same vein, where will your construction entrance be? The old driveway?
Yeah, we have a note here to say to use the existing driveway as the construction entrance.
Okay. So,
Do you have the planting plan for mitigation?
Yes, we do.
Can we look at that?
So here it is here. This is the plan that Brad Holmes put together, which shows the area to be planted and the plant legend species over here. Your typical sweet fern, bayberry, beech plum, mountain laurel, witch hazel, eastern red cedar, black birch, butterfly weed.
And can you tell me why this at the bottom of the page there's kind of a triangle that isn't planted? Is that because you reached the limit that you needed to?
I can tell you why, because that entire bottom area is my wife's garden, and she's giving it up so that we can do a lot of these plantings. She's surviving. So she wants a small area to plant.
So ironically, I want
tomatoes.
to not plant plantings there so I can plant other plantings, I guess.
Yeah.
But I realize that's not on the native list.
So is that to be vegetable garden or is
Vegetable
that
garden. That whole area right now is 2 giant, like 8x8 bed vegetable gardens that we put in COVID. It's been very fruitful given the area. So, but we're gonna remove that to do these plantings.
And a much smaller little garden.
So you're like a raised kind of like garden. No, we won't have anything that obstructs anything.
so it's previously disturbed.
Yeah, I mean, the whole site is either lawn or landscape. There's other than maybe some, larger trees on the site, like I said, the entire, 20,000 square foot lot has been, degraded or developed to some point.
Brendan? Could I please go back to the conversation about the runoff and the drainage that you were discussing with Tom?
Sure.
So are you saying that you're confident that there won't be any kind of runoff going into Rattlesnake Run? Because that does go right into Straits Pond, which is an ACEC area.
Correct. No, I feel, like I said, I feel confident that like I said, the 100-year storm doesn't even fill up halfway of the infiltration system that's there. So that's being conservative, I think. And like I said, if I did dig up and I did see some organics or something, then I would, maybe, have the contractor do a couple other test pits to make sure that the rest of the field wasn't like that or was, clean stone and sand below there as well. But I feel confident that it is, and we can certainly do another test pit out there to make sure that the material is the same, consistent throughout. If that would satisfy the board.
I would like to see that. I don't know about other members.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's overkill or.
It's not a
Just want
bad
to make
idea.
sure.
you know, that there is a concern that we add additional nitrate to Straits Pond, which is already impaired by excessive nitrate over the last 150 years or so. And that's why we get these algal blooms and these periodic swarms of non-biting midges that are a general nuisance to almost everybody in the neighborhood on both sides of the pond. So I know a lot of the neighbors are aware of the sensitivity here, some less so, some more so, but
Oh, we get the midges. I know what
Yep,
you're
we're
talking about.
familiar.
Yeah, see.
yeah, well, if you don't want to, if you want to see that swarm of midges,
Yeah.
be
No,
great.
we're supportive. We're supportive of doing that. We have no issue with that. We want to do the right thing.
Yeah, part of it's also about, you know, using time release nitrate fertilizer and using as little as possible.
Yeah, we actually don't
You
use
don't
any
use
fertilizer.
Yep, nope.
We're probably one of the few.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
My wife, the gardener.
Great. So, and do we have any further concerns or questions?
Thank you, Brendan.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, then, will anybody offer a motion to approve this notice of intent? And do we do these separately? Notice of intent and then the stormwater, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so let's start with the notice of intent.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions with our standard boilerplate of conditions. I don't think there were any others, so. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There was something that they wanted to review still?
Well, it seems like maybe it is overkill to do another test pit there. Sounds like it's pretty clean, and I think Mr. Sullivan's point that this drain field was only active for 10 years and it's been inactive for over 20 should give us a great deal of confidence that there isn't a lot of residual organic matter accumulated in it. And remind me, Mr. Sullivan, your test pit did penetrate the entire depth of that drain field. Is that correct?
Yes, yep, we get into the sand. We dug down, got around about 3 or 4 feet into the sand layer below the field,
So
below the stone and chambers.
Kathy, you okay with not seeing another test pit necessarily?
Yes, I defer to you. You're the expert in that field. Sure.
Well, I would call myself an expert, but I do know a little bit about it.
I know you do. Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so we don't have
Okay, so
any further.
so back to what I was saying.
Yeah, go
Back
ahead.
to what I was saying, well, I make a motion to issue an order of conditions with our standard boilerplate conditions.
Do we have a second for that?
Berrigan, second.
That will have a roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 4-0-0. So stormwater permit, do we have any concerns about this?
Did you want to do the variance first for the NOI, or do
Yeah.
you want to do that last?
Yeah, no, sure, let's do that. So I move that we issue a variance for work in the 50, I guess, for this replanting, correct?
Yeah, we also, I mean, Brendan and I are kind of looking at this in 2 different ways, but for the most part, we could have an alteration of greater than 1,000 square feet, but it is already previously degraded. They're meeting the redevelopment standards.
Right.
And there is some contradictory language in our regulations, so I had requested that they ask for a variance for the 50-foot buffer work and greater than 1,000 square feet of alteration, but there's definitely some language that I'm happy to go over with you guys that is a little contradictory, so it's whether or not you guys agree that the variance is for just the 50-foot buffer or if it's over than 1,000 square feet. But yeah.
So that sounds a little ambiguous, Charlotte.
Sorry, yeah, it is
Yeah,
ambiguous, unfortunately. I've
let's
had these
just-
conversations multiple times with multiple different people, and I don't like the way our regulations are worded, but I can't fix them right now.
Yeah, we can't change that.
Then let's just make the motion for work within the 50.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes. And in this case, you're not moving soil in or out. Is that correct, Mr. Sullivan?
That is correct.
So there's no need for any heavy equipment. This can be shovel and wheelbarrow. And so there's our standard condition that no mechanized equipment be used within the 50-foot buffer.
Yes, that is correct.
That's just as a reminder. I mean, that's part of our standard operating procedures here for this. Okay, so do we have a second for this variance?
Oh, do we make a motion or?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'll repeat it though. I move that we issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer.
Second,
Roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Bruce McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That motion passes 4-0-0. Okay, so let's move on to the stormwater permit. Were there any further questions about the stormwater permit? We sort of talked about all of this without distinguishing which questions we were asking pertain to which permit. So this is kind of your last chance to comment or a question about the stormwater system. Okay, with that, then I'll make a motion that we approve the stormwater permit 19.9 with our standard conditions for that.
Second,
Roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Bruce McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 4-0-0. So we don't, do we need to issue another variance to cover the stormwater permit, Charlotte?
No, because the variance is just under our wetlands.
Yeah, yeah.
So not under the stormwater.
All right.
But I mean, any work that's affiliated with stormwater in the 50-foot buffer, and I don't think there is, it technically would overlap over the order, but not for the planting. So no variance for stormwater.
So Mr. and Mrs. Knowlton, you are good to go.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, so we're going to resume discussion of the NOI 20-09 and stormwater permit 20-01 for 80 Black Horse Lane, Cohasset. That's been continued from August 24th.
Oh, we missed one, but I will just note that the applicants have asked. Yep.
Brick Road. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me back
Well,
up.
I'll just quickly note in case anyone's in the audience that the applicant requested a continuance to October 5th for the amended NOI and stormwater permit for 80 Black Horse Lane. So that one thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I jumped right over this one, didn't I?
That's okay.
Just trying to get this over with, right?
But we do have to read the public notice for this one to extend the order of conditions for NOI 1909.
Oh, wait a minute.
So it's an extension. It's an extension request. So it does.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so notice of public hearing for NOI 19.9, 15 Brook Road, Cohasset, in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for NOI 1901 for extension of their order of conditions to replace a barn and driveway by the applicant, Jim Norton. It said Merrill, Charlotte. Is the applicant actually Jim Norton?
Yes, I apologize. And I'm sorry, there is a typo in the agenda. I believe it's 15 Brook Street. So just to clarify for the record, I believe it's 15 Brook Street and the property owner is Jim Norton and the representative is Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Good. You want to introduce them?
Hi, Hi, Jim. Your name says Emily Petta, but you know, on your Zoom screen, but we have Jim Norton, who's the applicant, and Brendan Sullivan from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors representing you.
Yeah, so as I said, as Charlotte said, Brendan Sullivan with Merrill Associates here with the owner. So this order of conditions was granted back in 2019, and basically due to COVID, I know Jim is the order of conditions has been recorded, and I know Jim has a number of times tried to start the project. I've spoken to a few builders, but really just never got off the ground due to, you know, supply chain and of course, you know, COVID, the prices and everything just drove things through the roof. So it kind of threw his budget off a little bit. So at this point, we'd like to ask for an extension of the order conditions. It was issued, I don't know the exact date, but was it 2019, Charlotte? August.
Let me get that date for you guys, just so that the commission has that.
And so with the 3 years and then the 462-day COVID extension.
It was issued August 16th, 2019. And I believe you add the 462 days to that deadline, since it was issued before the start of the pandemic and would have expired after the end of the pandemic. So you add the 462 days, but even then, I think, you know, it doesn't sound like that's enough time to complete the project, but please confirm if that's not right. But I assume that's why you submitted the extension.
Yes, that is the case. Our special permit through planning and zoning has expired, so we have to go through that process again. But at least this is the first step, hopefully, if we granted the extension, to move forward with the other applications.
So Charlotte, to clarify, since this had already been granted in 2019, then they need to conform to the rules and regulations that were in place in 2019. Is that correct?
Correct. I'll pull up the order so you guys can see it. So this was the original order conditions. It was recorded. No work has started yet. So I'll go down to the special conditions so you guys can, I don't know if there were any special ones. Let me double check, other than our boilerplate. Oh, we did have a few. So we had these two at the end of installing 5 juniper trees, eastern red cedar of 8 to 10 inches in height along the back of the property. I believe those are noted on the site plan that was approved. And then this language about the arborist determining about an elm tree in the northeast corner of the property needs to be removed. Disease resistant elm tree, then they want, it sounds like we wanted a 5 to 6 inch caliper tree to be replaced, installed somewhere on the site. So this is still the existing order of conditions. So if we were to extend it, it would be the same conditions and parameters. And we can extend it up to 3 additional years per our bylaw.
Commissioners, questions or comments? Doesn't look like it. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't extend it then. Unless other commissioners have an objection. Okay, so I move that we grant a 3-year extension to this notice of intent. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, notice of intent 1909 with the approved conditions as of August of 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland.
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. Motion passes 4-0-0. Good to
Great,
go.
thank you very much.
Welcome.
Guys.
Welcome.
So what are we moving on to here? We haven't, how do we deal with this discussion of 22 Gammons Road? Is there anything, do we need to read that? It's already read into the record, right?
Yep. Yeah, so we, let me just promote Don O'Neill, who's the applicant.
This was continued, right?
No, so I can give a quick summary. So this was an order of conditions that we had recently issued with the last meeting. We wanted the work to start because of the concerns of the safety issues with the dead trees. But what the commission had requested a special condition to review basically a distribution plan for the felled material. And so Don has worked with Brad Holmes. He's at another meeting right now, so unfortunately I don't think he'll be able to call in, but I can pull up the plan. So they did develop a distribution plan to you know, where to put all the fallen tree debris. So the order has been issued for this project. Let me just pull this up real quick, sorry. And as Don, did I leave anything else out?
No, just to recap where we left off, Brad, myself, and Andrew from the tree company met on site on logistically how to take the trees down first. And then in the designated area, how many trees that we could get up and place into the triangle portion of the lot. And we came to the conclusion that 4 of the trees 6 through 10 could fit up in that lot, cut in 8 to 10 foot sections and placed with some of the branches laying on top. And in the previous submission, there's also a planting list that we submitted to plant back as Brad has outlined. Brad is again caught up in another meeting, so I just stepping in for any questions related to this. Currently, the crane is in the front yard, and there's major concerns if the hurricane continues from down south, it could be heading towards Massachusetts.
Could we see this attached sketch, please?
Yeah, sorry, I was just keeping the description up. So this is the plan that Don, ECR, and the tree companies have proposed. This area here is behind the boathouse, and so they're shading this area here where the proposed log and limb relocation, and then the 4 black oaks from this location will be moved to the log and limb area. So these trees here that were 6 through 10. The material will be cut up as specified on this memo and then placed here behind the boathouse. And I believe, Don, the extent of this area is this last like small section right here. This is the end of your property, correct?
Yes, that is correct. That's the end of the upper grounds. If you look at the far left purple.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. Yep, thank you. Okay. Yep.
That is, I guess, justifies the whole lot.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Commissioners, comments? So.
No comment.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying no comments.
Okay. Yeah, just to as a reminder, we ordinarily require that these be all of this be left within that 50-foot buffer, but also recognize that this is an awful lot of timber to leave laying around on the lawn or the edge of it. And I think in this circumstance, this compromise makes sense. I believe actually Valeria was the one that suggested this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Valerio, but I think this is a good compromise myself.
Yeah, I have no objection. I appreciate the owner doing this. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with no further comments or questions, I'll look for a motion to
we can make a motion to approve the revised.
Okay, yeah, I guess we're just approving the finishing touch on this. Okay.
Yeah, so sorry, we can make a motion to approve the submitted tree distribution plan as required per the order of conditions.
So moved. Yeah, do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Farland, aye.
John Bell, aye. This passes 4-0-0. Good to go.
I appreciate everybody's help.
Thank you, Don.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, have a good night.
Bye.
All right, so we have a certificate of compliance next, NOI 20-17 and stormwater permit 2023 for 7 Walnut Hill Lane.
Awesome. Okay. Just grab my paperwork for that. So this was sorry, switching gears here to COCs. So this was a 2020 notice of intent and stormwater permit to construct a proposed pool and hardscaping around it. So I'm going to pull up the approved plan first, just to, so you guys have the reference. So this was the approved plan. The existing home was in the 100 and part of the landscaping was in the, sorry, give me 1 second. I think, oh, thank you. Yep. Sorry, Brian. I missed you there. We have Brian Nichols, who is the applicant, and James Garfield, who is the representative from Morse Engineering. So sorry, let me pull that back up. But yeah, this is the approved plan. It was to construct a swimming pool, spa, veranda, and some hardscaping and landscaping. A good portion of the hardscaping and landscaping was outside of the 100-foot buffer, and then the pool is more than halfway in the 100, and then some of the landscaping to be done mostly in the 100, and then just a tiny portion in the 50-foot buffer. So I walked the site with Brian. I noted some deviations and I clarified some of these with the engineer and with Brian. So I'll just go through those really quickly. So for the pool was pool and spa were constructed per plan. I'll show the as-built in a sec, but the infiltration here, it was just a tad smaller, but I talked to the engineer about it not really having a major impact on stormwater runoff, and that this trench was built. It was just within a retaining wall area along this slope. So I just had noted on the plan. There was the pool equipment, which was added. So I'll show you guys the as-built for reference. The pool equipment was installed in the 100-foot buffer, but I will say that this is something I almost always see for pool projects for houses too, with generator pads. So the pool equipment was just installed here and it's connected accordingly. So the trench is still here. It's just a little smaller than proposed. And the stone retaining wall was added around a northern landscape area. So it's kind of around this patio, partially in the 50, but I did confirm with the engineer, it's pretty de minimis. It won't have an impact on stormwater. The patio is really, it's just a little larger. It was an increase of about 22 square feet of impervious surface in the 100, but the engineers noted it's de minimis and won't have an adverse impact on the calculations of the buffer. The proposed veranda was never built, so Brian just kept the existing conditions here with these decks, so that wasn't built. And then the mudroom was not built. There was supposed to be a little mudroom from here that just wasn't built in the 100. And then the retaining walls outside the 100 were just a slightly different orientation, but again, it's outside the 100, didn't appear to impact stormwater. So those were more the more minor changes. I will just note that from the proposed existing conditions on the proposed plan versus the final conditions on the as-built are just a tad different on this, I believe, easterly property border. So there was a playset area here up in this northeastern corner that was removed and replaced with grass. It was wood chipped, and then a small tree had fallen down. Well, not a small tree, a medium-sized tree had fallen down right near where the 74 contour is, or this number, and that was from a storm event. And then in talking with Brian, he mentioned that he spoke with the previous agent, Jeff Summers, about installing a shed along this property border in the 50-foot buffer. It is on blocks, so it's not a permanent structure. It's technically considered a temporary structure, and it's sitting on a gravel base. But I guess, Brian, do you have any more information for that? I know you said that you were working with your wife. I'm not sure if you guys found any emails from Jeff, but you did talk to Jeff Summers about that during the pandemic,
Yeah,
I believe.
my wife did. It was by phone and text, so we did not have any emails. It was
Gotcha.
during the thick of the pandemic.
Okay. Okay. So those were the changes. And then since this was a pool project, if the commission were to issue a COC, I would recommend our standard ongoing conditions of, number 40, no herbicides, pesticides, etc. Number 41, all plantings must survive 3 full growing seasons or be replaced. And then condition number 52, which is our pool best management practices, we can, implement that as an ongoing condition. I confirmed that internally. So those would be the 3 ongoing conditions I would suggest, unless the commission has other questions.
Is that shed actually across the property line?
James, can you speak to that? That's how it was surveyed on the as-built.
Yeah, I mean, it appears to be the backside of it, partially outside of the property, but I guess, Charlotte, you said that was a shed that could possibly be moved. But we could potentially bring it back onto the property.
And
so this
does
is
it require a 5-foot setback as well?
I'll get to the picture of the shed.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any setbacks for a shed. I'd have to look into that.
It can be within 3 feet of the property line, as far as I'm aware, as long as it's under 15 feet in height. So this is where it is, and it's right in front of the existing fence. So as you can see from the photo, it's sitting on blocks and it's on a gravel base. So I think that's why the previous agent had noted, since it's a temporary structure, it was more minor. But this area above the shed is sloped, so it's a little difficult to put the shed on the slope. So that I would assume was part of the discussion to put it here.
Yeah. I just wonder whether the abutter is aware of that. It's not our jurisdiction, so let's skip that.
No. But I guess, Brian, did you have any other comments for that? I don't think, I would assume you talked to the previous building inspector as well, if you needed a permit or not.
Yeah, and I believe it was because it was considered a temporary structure. We did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, any further questions or comments? So I move that we approve the certificate of compliance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. Motion passes 4-0-0.
And just to clarify,
Charlotte, don't ever give anyone permission to put a shed in the 50-foot buffer, all right?
Yeah.
okay, will do. And
Thank you.
just to clarify, Tom, was that for the NOI and the stormwater permit? And then the NOI would have our ongoing conditions for 40, 41, and 52?
Yeah, let's make that one for the stormwater permit. Can we do that?
You mean for the NOI?
Oh, well, okay, let's do it for the NOI, and we'll do another one for the stormwater permit,
Sure. Yeah.
just to be sure we.
Well, we just did one. We just said COC.
Okay. Okay, so I make a motion to approve a certificate of compliance. Oh, to close the, is that right? Close the NOI?
Yeah, you would make a motion to close the order of conditions with a COC, and then with a certificate of compliance, and then close the stormwater permit with a certificate of completion. The 2 different terminology, but still the same acronym.
Okay.
And with the order COC, you would do 40, 41, and 52 if you wanted ongoing conditions.
And the ongoing conditions were no herbicides, pesticides.
3 full growing seasons for plantings, and then the pool best management practices.
Right. Right. Do we need to recite all of that?
Well, you said COC, so we could do that one for stormwater, and you can do a new one for the NOI if you want to do that.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for the NOI 2017 with the
Second.
standard conditions and the additional conditions of herbicides, pesticides, fertilizer,
And then the plantings and pool BMPs.
and the plantings and pool BMPs.
Second.
You still
Second.
second? Okay, roll call vote. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. Motion passes 4-0-0.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Now, last meeting, we put off the 48 or the agent updates. So we should have quite a few of them. Is that where we're at, Charlotte, here?
Yeah.
Or the 48-hour updates we can do. You want to do that first?
Yeah, I don't, unless you want me to say the ones I let you know about, I didn't have any, the ones we talked about on Tuesday. Yeah, did you want me to state those?
No, I don't want you to save anything. We're only at 8:18, and this is
Yeah.
a time to sweep the closet clean of
Absolutely.
all those things that were hanging over us from the last meeting. So
Yeah.
So we start with a clean slate at our next meeting. So we've got we're finishing relatively early. Let's clean up.
Right. Yeah, I'll try to make this quick. So, these are, obviously a little outdated, but, just so that you guys are aware, I know I've talked to a few of you, 80 and 102 Howe Road. We're dealing with erosion control concerns similar to 10 Ocean Ledge. It's hard to obviously, put whatever percentage of the blame on 80 or 102, but I will say I did witness during rainstorms erosion leaving both 80 and 102 Howe Road. 102 Howe Road's really only the driveway entrance, but their construction entrance has been completely obliterated, and there are cracks in the pavement that were resulting in some sediment runoff into a down gradient catch basin. I saw rocks from the entrance leaving that site. The owners are a little resistant to admit that, but I will admit that the majority of erosion was probably coming from the uphill 80 Howe Road, which is on a very steep hill. But since then, 80 Howe Road, Tom, I haven't driven by to see it yet, but they did tell me that they installed the sod, which is much better than hydro seed in my opinion. So the sod has been installed, and hopefully we won't see as many of those erosion issues. And then 102 Howe Road is actively working with DPW to pave the utility cut that's close to where that water work was done for 15 Diab Lane across the street. And then they will have the first, I believe, 30 or 40 feet of that driveway paved, and the rest of it will all be gravel. So hopefully with those two things being done, we won't see as many erosion concerns. But I will state that the catch basin that I'm talking about is in a very sensitive state. There is sediment in there, but the road is mostly severely indented around that catch basin. So if you were to pull up the catch basin to clean it out, it would most likely collapse. And since Howe Road's a private road, DPW doesn't really get involved. So it's a very tricky situation. I have noted to both applicants that I am concerned about the erosion leaving the site, and there still is dirt in the catch basin, but it may not be able to be fixed if the catch basin will collapse. So I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. For Windy Hill Road, I'm a little slow with this, but I will be initiating a show cause hearing for some issues on the site. I am dealing with similar erosion control concerns, actively working with the contractor to reinstall the erosion barrier. I just had some chats with their landscaping crew this week because they keep driving over the barrier after multiple attempts to tell them to not do that. And actually the general contractor is not happy at all because those are expensive. So he will be having a chat with them too. But if I see it again, I'm going to be harder on this. But they have cleaned out the catch basin in front of the property. They will be putting in a silt sack. If not, it hasn't already been done. It's going to be done ASAP. I told them yesterday it has to get done now. And then I did witness erosion leaving that site in a rainstorm, but the other catch basin doesn't have any sediment left in there. It's really just that one that's at the bottom of Windy Hill Road. The other issue that will be more part of the show cause, so I won't explain it, but as you guys have seen, there's quite a few retaining walls there. So we will talk about that in another meeting. 258 North Main, they have finished their work. We recently issued an administrative COC, but I had them keep the erosion control barrier in front of the hydro-seeded area on the right side of the house until that area is fully vegetated. They are working towards other permits being closed, but the stormwater permit compliance was met. And then 10 Highland Court, same thing. I actually just issued a COC today. This was an administrative permit with an addition that was built per plan and the site was all stabilized. So those 2 administrative stormwater permits were closed out. And then for other updates, a few commissioners, thank you guys so much for giving me your comments. For those of you who did, and I appreciate all of your edits. I'm just combining them all into one document. And I'll just wait till the next meeting for a few other commissioners to look at it. And then for fee schedule, we talked about this already, but since our fee schedule is from 2016, we want to update the costs. So I will be working on that. We do have to advertise a public notice in the newspaper about revising a fee schedule or rules and regulations. So depending on when you guys want to do this, I can do it in pieces. I'm very behind on the rules and regulations because it's a lot more work, but the fee schedule is easy to update. We just have to pay for a public newspaper notice. So I'll just figure out the logistics for that. And then just so that you guys are generally aware, I'm sure you guys have all seen the signs. Black Rock Beach has had a lot of closures this year. This is a sensitive beach that is subject to a lot of runoff from Forest Ave and Jerusalem Road. So Board of Health has been dealing with a lot of closures based off of the bacterial geomine. So it's been tough. And Val, I know you saw some of this a couple weeks ago, but we had a rainy season this year. So that's really why. Sandy Beach did really well, but Bassings actually did better than Black Rock Beach this year. And then Turkey Hill, I won't speak too much about it, but just want to let you guys know that we had a second wetland scientist go out there and confirm that the sloped area that we're talking about is an isolated vegetative wetland. It is not your typical wetland since it's on a slope. And IVWs are, isolated, not connected to any other hydrologic source. So it used to be a forest that was cut by the trustees to create more meadow space for other native species. So we are working on submitting an NOI with the town, basically me, and with the trustees and with ECR to come up with a management plan for this area. So I won't speak too much more, but just want to let you know that that's coming. Sad news on the culvert grant. We did not get that. We submitted a grant to repair some of the culverts along, was it Turkey Hill Run, on Cedar Street, Lampert's Lane, and Hall Street. So we unfortunately didn't get that one. There were some grants that were awarded, like for example, Wellfleet got 4.4 million. They were targeting ecological restoration to restore fish runs. So Turkey Hill Run, I'm not sure if it's an active fish run. Tom's shaking his head no. There are other grant opportunities I'm looking at. Chris McIntyre, I'm hitting a roadblock with the tree one with DPW. They seem kind of, they always throw the resources and the timing stuff at me, but I'll still keep trying because we still have time before the deadline. But we do need the tree warden to be actively involved in any sort of submission for this grant. So I will try to call him. We've been playing phone tag for a while, but I'll try to get him on the phone ASAP and get an answer if any of these potential projects are feasible for the grant. And then we're working with Montana Castle on a MAPC climate resiliency project to enhance native pollination and local biodiversity in town. So we're actively working on that as well. And we'll be pairing with Wild Cohasset citizen scientists and a field botanist to kind of assess certain areas actually along Black Rock Beach if we get the grant, and then also in an inland area in town. We're targeting the library since it's near wetlands. So more to come on those grant opportunities. But if you guys ever see anything that seems like it's conservation oriented, I'm happy to look into it and get involved. I work together with a few town staff to just try and submit whatever grants that we can to get whatever money we can to just kind of do these types of projects. So yeah. All right, that's it. How did I do?
Did great.
Trying to go before 8:30.
I think we made it.
Yeah.
Well, I have one item I wanted to bring up. On the water department was working on Pond Street.
Okay.
And but then like the next day or 2 days later, I noticed that all the manholes on 3A
Okay,
had an area of vegetation removed off to the east of the roadway. Like at each catch basin, they cleared an area.
mhm,
I don't know what they did. I don't know if they put an overflow on them or what they did.
okay,
So, you
I'll
know,
look
they
into
just-
that. Yeah,
They just pushed the vegetation right into the wetland there, because there is a wetland right there.
did they
And there's,
throw
like,
stuff? Like, did they dump stuff in the wetland or?
No, I think they just, if I had to guess what they did, because I've only seen it from the car, my guess is that they excavated next to each catch basin
Okay,
and either replace a pipe that drains into the wetland, or I'm not really sure.
okay, I'll look into that because actually, thank you, Chris. That was one of my potential 48-hour updates. I noticed the vegetation disturbance when I was driving down 3A earlier this week. It definitely wasn't from the previous work that we had closed out with the new installation of a sewer line from 380 CJC, because that was not there. This was recent. So thank you for letting me know that was
Yeah.
water department. I wasn't sure who may have done that, if it was
Well-
Dot or someone or.
Well, like I said, the water department was working on Pond Street, so
Okay.
I can't swear to the fact that they then went around the corner. All I know is that there's John's Import Garage or something. And
Okay.
They did the same. I definitely know that the water department dug like off the road right next to his garage. So
Okay.
it just seems the same. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'll look into that. Thank you. I did see the vegetation stuff. Usually with any type of maintenance repair of existing utilities that are, you know, lawfully located in public utilities, like, again, the maintenance is exempt, but they really should be giving us written notice. So if they were doing that type of work on the catch basins and the pipes, I would have been nice if I'd gotten written notice. Because everyone else is usually pretty good, like National Grid's good with it. There's a few other companies that do utility work and they're really good with it. Plymouth Mosquito Ditch is good with notifying me too, but yeah, not sure about this one. I didn't get a street open permit for this either, so, yeah.
Charlotte,
Okay,
did
I'll
you
look into
find
it.
out who was responsible for that Roundup bomb that exploded at the mouth of Rattlesnake Run?
Yeah, was that, I haven't driven by it yet, Tom, but I can do that tomorrow. Was that, do you know the exact address, where it might be? In the 600s, right?
Yeah, well, no, let's see. Yeah, it'd be in the 600s. It's the property is adjacent to, I believe the property holder there is Anson Wheeler.
Okay,
But it doesn't look like anything happened on his property. The landowner there along of that strip is Cohasset Conservation Trust.
okay. Okay,
Tom, could you
Probably-
repeat,
You've
could you
probably seen
repeat
it,
what you
right,
said?
Kathy? You've seen what I'm talking about, where that big area of dead vegetation suddenly appeared about 3 weeks ago, right along Straits Pond, just when you're driving, towards town, just before you get to the first house on the left.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there's a big area that clearly somebody did a lot of spraying of Roundup there.
Oh.
yeah, there's been some recent activity of Roundup being sprayed around the Doan and Beechwood Street ball fields, and we did get some calls about that. I don't know if maybe DPW is running around doing maintenance stuff or if this was a private issue, but I'll look into that and I'll drive by it tomorrow.
This was an area of fairly dense Japanese knotweed. So
okay.
I'm sure that's what attracted somebody's ire. So
Get rid of it, yeah. Okay,
good. Do we have any other issues, Charlotte?
unless you want me to repeat the ones I told you about on Tuesday.
Well, you can mention whatever you think is appropriate.
Well, long story short, I've talked to Sanji about this, but someone is expressing concerns and complaints to the town about 187 Atlantic Ave long story short, this is the property that we had recently closed out with some complicated permits with wetlands and sump pumps and all this other stuff. And so in the area, right as you're coming down at the end of Beechwood Street, there's a front yard area. It's like, it's not their front yard, but it's the front yard area of the property that was previously filled. I know Chris McFarland, I talked to you about this maybe a couple months ago or several months ago at this point. They had filled that area with some loam and seed and grass because they were dealing with some flooding issues. The person who has expressed these complaints to me is confident that that area was a wetland, but I've talked to Sanji, I've talked to the original wetland scientist who flagged the property. I've talked to the neighbors. I've looked into this as best as I can. And unfortunately, we approved a wetland delineation back in 2019 with the original NOI to raise and rebuild the existing home. And Sanjay, I don't think you said you saw any cattails around that time, because that's what the person is claiming. It's very possible. It's very possible that this original home at 187 Atlantic Ave, before the lot was split, it could have been a wetland a long time ago. And the home was built in 1940, 30 years before the Wetlands Protection Act. Well, 30 plus years before the Wetlands Protection Act. So if it was a wetland, it's been disturbed for a very long time. And we had reports from the wetland scientists not indicating a wetland in that area. It was reflagged in 2021 with a peer review. Really the only way for me to determine if that area is a wetland is for me to get down there with a shovel and an auger and see if we can find hydric soils. But I would need permission from the property owner to do that. And let's just say they obviously would not want to do that because that would implicate their property. So I'll address it with this person as best I can. I've offered to meet with them and show them all the documents, everything that I'm, I'm pretty confident that this was an area outside of our jurisdiction, as I've noted you guys in previous updates, but they do seem convinced that it was a wetland and someone's getting away with murder. And I'm not sure how much I can do. I'm happy to look into it in the legal end, but we approved delineations multiple times for that property. So does anyone else have concerns or suggestions on how I can go about this? Sanjay, if you have anything else to add, let me know, but I talked to you about it, obviously.
Yeah, I have nothing to add, and I'm familiar with those delineations only from when we purchased and built our home. And yeah, I don't know, like I don't think I could add anything more. So yeah, there was no observable vegetation like that or anything like that. There was definitely some pooled water when we had heavy rains. Right. But they had the previous homeowners had filled in that area with some sort of dirt, but hadn't sod it. But I don't think standing water makes a wetland, from what I understand.
No, you have to have the native vegetation greater than 50%, which obviously we wouldn't see. And then you have to have the hydric indicators, which are any signs of other hydrologic, functions and signs that it could be a wetland. And then the third criteria, which is actually more one of the most important criteria that they've emphasized in this recent redo of the BVW delineation handbook, is the presence of hydric soils, because those have formed over thousands of years and they're gray, and you can see the modeling and with any like kind of reddish dots with gray soil. So hydric soils are pretty easy to identify for a wetland scientist if they're located on site. But like I said, I would have to start digging a bunch of holes in the front of someone's property, but I would need permission to do that.
Well,
but
even if you did, we have no recourse.
Yeah, I mean, until the wetland delineation expires from the ones we approved, if we do see any signs of disturbance of what we think could be a wetland, we can maybe investigate it then. But for now, it's kind of tough, since we've approved wetland delineations and those projects were approved with the notion that there's no wetlands in that area. There's definitely a wetland across the street, but it has been flagged as an IVW, which only has a 25-foot buffer. So it won't reach the front yard, to my knowledge, because it was flagged at 136 Atlantic Ave across the street. So it is unfortunate. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if that whole area on Atlantic Ave was historically a wetland before the road was built, before the homes were built. I'm sure there's several dozen, if not over 100 properties in Cohasset that are like that, but it's really tough with jurisdiction, and wetland scientists also need permission to walk the site. They're not like professional land surveyors where they have a little bit more freedom in that regard. So yeah, to call in a wetland scientist or to have me start digging holes in the front of someone's property.
Charlotte, sorry. Charlotte, at what time period are these people saying it was a wetland? Are they specifying? a
So
specific
she
time period?
came to me like several months ago. I would say a little less than a year ago. Chris McFarland had also either let me know that they had filled that area in the front yard. So I had investigated it. I looked at the site plans and I let you guys know initially that it didn't seem like it was an area within our jurisdiction in the 100-foot buffer at least, or the 25-foot buffer across the street. And then I had spoken to this person a few other times and let them know about the status of the pending COC requests for 2019 and 2021. I think she may have misinterpreted what I said because I told her that one of the orders required wetlands restoration, but I was talking about the wetland in the backyard, you know, where the dock boardwalk is.
Yeah.
And so she may have interpreted that I told her that the front yard would be restored. So when the COCs were issued, she came back and said she's disappointed and they're getting away with murder and all this other stuff. And I was like, I don't like hearing that, but I'm happy to, I've offered to have in-person meetings with her and clarify, but she's declined. So.
Okay.
But I'm just explaining it as best I can. And I'm going to write her like a full email response. That's like a book, you know, just to let her know of everything that I've done to try and investigate. But I am kind of bound by whatever previous approvals that we've given, unless she submits photos of cattails to me, then maybe we could do something. But yeah.
I kind of doubt it.
Sounds like, Charlotte, you're basically just doing, you know, managing the public and just doing kind of like a service for a Cohasset resident. I mean, if we have maps that show that this isn't wet, then that ends our problem, right? And you're just trying to sort of manage expectations and keep her calm. That's kind of what's going on here?
It's like a combination, but it's also like, you know, as the enforcement agent, you know, I'm trying to determine if enforcement is necessary. So the first time that the issue was approached to me about filling in that area, it's, you know, it's in between two buffer zones. So I had determined that area is most likely outside of our jurisdiction, but then the second time it was about, she thinks it was a wetland. And now the third time she's saying there were cattails that were there and the whole area was filled. So it wasn't like a clear story consistently, but, you know, just the consistent concern of the previous owner did a lot to this property that may or may not have been permitted and got away with it because they were trying to sell the home. Which, you know, again, it's like I said, it's a very difficult situation if we've already issued permits, approved wetlands delineations. But if she had submitted photos of cattails like 6 or 7 months ago, we could have investigated that before any of those COCs were closed. But yeah.
Well, the reason I bring it up is I'm obviously brand new and don't want to, you know, tell you what to do or not do. I just say, don't waste too much of your valuable time that's spread very thin, you know, on placating the public if it's just something unnecessary, you know, like.
Thank you. Yeah, I try. I just don't like being accused of not doing something. So, as I would assume most people don't. So, but I will clarify it with her because, you know, as you know, I am I'm employed by the town, so I'm everyone's advisor. But anyway, that was the major one. And then there's another, I've been getting reports of someone on Atlantic Ave who's been using their boat to lift crab and lobster traps that have been abandoned for years at the bottom of the area in the water past the Cunningham Bridge. So, you know, while her efforts are very well intentioned and we appreciate someone cleaning up debris, I hate getting technical, but if she disturbs land under ocean, she's going to need a permit. So I will tell her that. I know some people may or may not have seen her using her boat and timing it with high tide to kind of slowly lift these traps up out of the water. And again, I love when someone cleans up stuff, but if you're disturbing or altering a resource area subject to jurisdiction, it gets a little tough. So she's trying to remove this giant iron pipe that's been in the sediment for a very long time. And again, it's a well-intentioned idea, but it could cross state permitting requirements too with 401 water quality certification, although with the recent court decision from the Supreme Court, I'm not sure. But anyway, so I do have to awkwardly tell her that I appreciate what you're doing, but if you want to do anything that disturbs land under ocean, you're going to need a permit. But if she's just picking stuff up in the water, or picking stuff up off the ground, or out of the beach or the marsh. Like that's what, I wouldn't necessarily consider that an alteration unless she brings in heavy materials and drags everything across the marsh. But if she's just picking stuff up, and cleaning up trash, then that's fine. But to rip up stuff from the ocean bed, that's also mussel beds and,
Actually, she doesn't rip anything up. I mean, her methodology is
it is pretty clever. It's clever.
To put a float on it, and with over a number of tidal cycles, it
Slowly lifts it up.
The lobster traps that are partially buried
Wait,
slowly
Are
rise.
those like the white jugs that she
That's right.
attaches? Ah, okay, I was wondering what the
Yeah,
heck
you've
she was
seen
doing.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, very well
Maybe-
intentioned.
Those things are a hazard. Anybody that's wading around out there,
Yeah.
that's the sort of thing that can go right through your boot. A rusty piece of wire there, and it's unsightly. It's trash. I think she's kind of where she's really overstepping her bounds is to think she's going to move that 50-foot long, 2-foot diameter cast iron pipe that probably weighs 8 or 10 tons.
Yeah.
She's not going to lift that with a boat, and that's probably been in there for 80 years or whatever.
The thing is,
Are
wildlife.
the lobster traps? Oh, sorry, Val, go ahead.
Well, ocean life after 80 years makes that part of their home too, right? So you
Oh
can't.
yeah, it's full of lobsters. Yeah, the lobsters live in that.
It's also covered with, it's covered with crustaceans and shellfish and everything. So I told her it's an existing condition and needs to remain as is unless she wants to submit a permit. But, you could argue like for the work that she's doing with the lobster traps, she could submit a simple RDA to us just so that she has that protection, because a lot of people are calling the police, the harbor master, the town. She had spoken to town manager. So she is getting a lot of calls for what she's doing. And there are people who are upset. Her boat has caused some channel disturbance and safety issues. At one point it got tipped over and they were getting all these reports of man overboard kind of thing. So, or person overboard, sorry. But yeah, so I mean, with the harbor master, it's not really sitting well with docking her boat there and putting all those floats up and just kind of chilling there. So from a navigation perspective, it can be an issue, and that is sort of roughly in our jurisdiction under the bylaw. But again, if she wants to submit a simple RDA for the lobster traps, I'd personally be okay with that, but obviously it'll be up to you guys to issue that. But yeah, for the pipe, that really has to be a more serious permitting thing. So I'll let her know. But her work's well intentioned. It's just, I got to be neutral.
Maybe point her towards whatever forms she'd need to fill out. That might help make her feel like you care,
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to her whole story. She's been doing this, I think, for like 10 plus years. So she gave me this like little book and pamphlet of everything she's already done. So I was like, all right, I'm going to pretend like I didn't see that. So moving forward,
exactly.
Please don't give me a book of evidence of what you've done in a resource area.
I gotta confess, I've helped her at various times.
That's fine. I mean, I have to be neutral. Everyone has to follow the rules. Anyway, so I'll let her know, and I'm happy to work with her if she does choose to submit anything. I have a template email for RDA submissions at this point. I'm how to advise people how to do it. So I'll help her if she wants a permit.
Okay, so I think it's time for us to. We've cleaned out our closet. We're starting with a clean slate next meeting. So we'll see each other all again then. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We'll do it just by unanimous voice vote. Aye.
Aye.
Everyone, aye. Yeah, there you go.
Good night.
See y'all.
All right, thanks guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Next time. Thanks guys. Bye.